The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there and welcome to today's webinar. Today's topic is about Snake in the Widget Designer. So please welcome Justin as my moderator.
Hello.
Okay, so first I will tell you the idea about that project. After that I tell you the scripts I've used, and then we will go into the Widget Designer project and I show how it works. So the idea was to make a standalone widget project with an interactive game, with also the possibility of a multiplayer. So I decided to program Snake in the widget designer. So for that, only a widget designer is needed, and no need to combine it with Pandoras Box. So in basically everything is done with if conditions and for loops. Of course, there are also some widget designer scripts which I've used. I've also used a JSON variable to store different kind of data, but mainly everything is done with if conditions and for loops. Let's already jump to the widget designer project. So I will start the game first so you can see how it looks like. And then I'm going to explain you what I did and how I achieved that. So when I press play here, you can see it starts generating the snake here, and also the orange boxes here, which is the food. So if you collect food, the snake increases the size. And also down here, you see for each player the time it is alive, and you get more points if you collect food, and you get also more points the longer you are alive. Also, the longer you're alive, the faster the snake will get. So also the speed will increase over time. So we'll see that now in a few seconds. Yeah, there we are, that the speed of snake increased here. So as soon as I hit anything which I'm not supposed to hit, like the border here, the game will stop. So I've also the possibility here to have up to 4 players. In theory, there's no limit for players, but this game now is programmed up to 4 players here. So how do I achieve that? So the first thing is I needed something to display my snake or to animate my snake. So I need some kind of pixels I can tint to view the snake. And I came up with the idea to use labels for that. So what you can see here are all labels. So this is just a label, and a total of, I think, 1,300 labels here, which are my display at the end. Don't worry, I didn't create it manually, so I also used the script for that. So if I go to scripts, I have here script for creating the display. So you can see here I have a for loop for 1 to 40, which increases the x. Let me zoom in. So my x variable and y variable, and my x variable in here increases by 30 each time the loop is executed. So it will start here at the top and go over here until it has done the 40 steps. I use the WD control copy command for that. So with that command you can copy any widget you can create, any widget designer. I decided to go with the copy command because I've created a label as a preset on a different page. So I'm copying that label from this page, which has all the values set. So like text size, background color. So I'm using that as a preset. So then I'm assigning here the x and y variable, and then I'm giving it a new name. So I call it display. This is the page name actually. So that's page display. And then I'm assigning a new name to the label, which is display, and the ID behind it. So it starts with display 1, 2, 3, and so on. So next step, I have a for loop for 1 to 30, which is the second row. And after gone through here the second row completely, so this is the for 1 to 42. So it's 42 here, and then it's going to the second step here, and then 1 to 42 again in the next row. So it will create the display row after row. Yeah, and then at the last line here, you can see there are 2 labels less again. So that's for the last row here. So that's how I created my display here. So when we take a look here at our play button, where everything begins, you can see here it's executing a macro called start game, and it's using also another parameter, which is my drop-down list over here, so the game mode. So currently there's only one game mode, so I'm not using this right now, but if there's any other game mode you want to create, you could use that variable to start a different game, for example. So when we take a look here at the start game macro, you can already see I'm using a JSON variable here. So let us have a look first at the JSON variable. So I have here a text box with the information of our JSON variable. So in here I'm storing every data for player 1. So I have the start position. So when I press play, it will first create start positions for each player and will store them here inside of the JSON variable. Then I have the direction. So the direction can be 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending if you have selected up, down, left, or right, so in the direction you're going. Then there's the current position VRR, and the start position VRR. So the current position, stores the current position, and the start position is storing. So there's another variable which is a list in here with current positions. every time the position changes or the snake moves, the new position will be stored within that list here. So the start position will tell me what the last available block of the snake is. So if I play again, okay. So if we take a look now, the JSON variable, you can see in that list they are stored all of the positions. So the label, the labels here, and you can see the start position is 3. So that means I'm here. So I start at 0 with a list. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So that means display. So the label named display 1179 is my last block. Oops, is my last block of the snake. So this one. So I always knew where the head of my snake is and where the end of the tail of my snake. Okay, yeah. Then I got the face variable. Could always also use the latest list here, but for easier access, I have here the face. Then I got the state, which will tell me if the player is still alive or not. So if the player ran into a border or a different snake, the state will set to 0. And then I got the score here and the time information. I also got config here. So this also stores state. The state can have 3 types, so it can be play, pause, or stopped. I'm going to that in a second. And then I got global, which stores the position of the food, so of the orange blocks. And then, of course, for the other players, again, all the values of positions and score information. So that's my JSON variable I'm using. Okay, so if we take a look here in the macro again, okay, you can see here checking what the config state is. So if it's play, I know I can pause the game, so I'm just stopping the script timers here, and I'm setting the JSON config state to paused. If the config state is on paused, there's no if condition here for that, so it will not execute any of that. It will just execute the bottom 3 lines, so it will just start the script timers again. So that's why I can easily pause the game, and when I press play again, it will continue where you left. Yeah, and if it's on stopped, so if you ran into anything, it will first reset here the game. So this will basically, this will set your JSON variable to defaults. So it will reset every variables in there to the default values. So I'm just, so I have a for loop here, depending on how many players are playing. And then I'm setting for each player here the values for position, time, state, and everything, yeah, to the defaults. Yeah, so first make sure all of the values are reset. After that, I'm executing here a function which generates my start positions of the snake. So here I have a for loop, which goes from 1 to whatever, how many players you have selected here. So currently it goes from 1 to 1. Zoom in. And then it creates a local variable called start position with the value 0. For that I have a for loop where I generate a random value between 42 and 1299. And then I'm checking if the value which was generated here, the label of that generated value is black. Because inside of that range, there's also the labels of the border, which are white. And I don't want to create a snake on the border. So that's why I'm checking here if the label background is black. And if yes, I break the for loop here. Break means basically don't execute it again, and then it will just take the value you have in here. So it will stop the for loop. So I'm checking if this is a value, if this is a valid value. Yeah, then I'm setting here the start position in my JSON variable. Also the face position, and I add the position in the current positions list. Down here, again, some if conditions. That's for the multiplier. So this will set the label in the correct color. So each of the players, as you can see down here, each of the players have different color. So player 1 will have a green color, player 2 red color, and so on. And yeah, at the end here, I'm just setting the label text with that little smiley here, so you can recognize the face position of your snake. Okay. So after setting the start position, so the set start position is also a function, as you can see here. One of the differences between a function and macro is that the function will wait until, or the function will block the rest of the script here until the function has been processed completely. So if this would have been a macro, this would have been executed and directly continued to execute the rest of the script at the same time. As this is a function, this will block the rest of the script until the function has been executed completely. So otherwise we would run into timing issues if this would have been a macro. Yeah. On here, with the if conditions here, I'm checking how many players we have. If we have only one player, the other player's state will be 0. So I know all of the other players are out already, so I have only player 1. Here for 2 players, I'm setting player 3 and 4 to state 0. Yeah, and then I'm starting the script timer. So let us have a look into the script timer. I have here another page with 3 script timers. So the first script timer is for the main game logic. So we're going to have a look into that in a second. The second script timer is just for creating the food. And the third script timer is for the timer. So let's have a look here into our first script timer. So in here we have a macro snake longer. Then I'm setting the JSON variable config state to play, and then I will execute a macro which checks if there's still any player alive. So if I go to that first, because that's a pretty short macro, so we can go through that real quick. So here I'm checking for each player the state. So player 1 the state, 2 and 3 and 4. And if all of them are at 0, state 0, I stop the script timers because every player failed or ran into anything, any border or so. So this is where I stop my scripts here. Okay, so let's have a look here in the snake longer. Okay, here again, I'm checking how many players are playing this game. So for 1, 2, whatever, how many players. And then I'm executing the macro snake longer with the parameter for the player ID. So player 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay. All right. So at the first line here, I'm checking if the player is still alive or not. So the state is still at 1 or not. Because if the player has already failed, I don't have to execute all of the scripts here. Second line, I'm resetting the label with the face. So we go here, the label with the face. I'm removing the text. So the smiley on here, this is basically the text on the label. So I'm removing that in first place here. Not sure if you're already familiar with the project syntax here. So if I'm using, I want to use dynamic names here with variables and everything. So I know that my labels here are called display, and I get a ID via a variable. So in order, well, if I use display 1200 something, I could assign a text to it directly. But if I get the number of that with a variable, I have to use the project.label. And with the project.label, I can define a label name out of multiple parts. So I have here the part display, which I know because it's fixed for every label, it's display. And then I need to add the number of that label here. And then I'm adding that from my JSON variable. So I get here the integer of the JSON for the player. And then the face variable. So it combines here the text with the variable, and then I have my label name, so I can assign a different text to it. Yeah. So here I'm creating a local variable for the new position. So I have here a function which will give me a return value. And this return value will be set inside of that variable here. So if we have a look here in the function, here's the logic for calculating the next label. So depending if I'm going up, down, left or right, I have to get the depending label ID. So I know if I open up here this label and the label under it, I know that there's a difference of 42 when going up or down. And if I'm going left or right, I know there's a difference of +1 or -1. So I'm checking here the direction it is going, and then accordingly, I'm calculating the new position for the new label. So if I'm going up, I have to add 42 to the current label ID, and then I'm setting that inside of my JSON variable for the depending player as a face variable. So that I'm also returning it to the other script again. So this variable will be set here for my new position variable. Okay. So here I'm checking if the label I'm going through or the new label position is orange, because if it's orange, then it will be the food label. And then of course I'm checking again which player it currently is for setting the correct color for the correct player. Then assigning text to it and adding the new position to the current position list variable. Because if I'm eating that food, I don't want to shorten the snake. So what I'm doing is basically I'm moving the snake forward, well, tinting the next label, and make sure I remove the last label or tinting the last label to black again. So to make it look like it's moving forward. If I eat food, I don't remove the last label. So it adds up one block, so it gets longer. So this is why I have a separate script for the food here. So if you take a look here in the score, this is the next one that's executed. So the score is checking the size of my snake for each snake, and setting the score then. So each time it gets longer, the score is plus 10 points each time. Down here I have another macro which just updates the labels here for the score. So the labels on the close that. So just updating the labels here on the right side. The next one is the speed update. So this is something I would actually have put into a different script. Well, not in the snake longer script, because here it doesn't make that much sense. But anyway, so here I'm just checking what the time is. So if it's at 15 seconds, I will increase the interval to 400 milliseconds. If it's at 45 seconds, I will increase the interval of the script timer to 300 milliseconds. And the fastest step is at 1 minute and 30 seconds. The interval will be set to 200 milliseconds. So yeah, this is the speed macro, something I would normally put inside of the script timer of the timer and not inside of the snake longer script, because I don't have to run that script that often. Because this script, if you have 4 players, this script speed will run 4 times each interval. So if the interval of the script timer is at 200 milliseconds, the script here will run 4 times each 200 milliseconds at the fastest speed, which doesn't make any sense. So anyway, yeah, at the next step here, I'm checking if the color of the new label is anything else than black. So if it's white, if it's red, so a different snake, or because that means it ran into anything it shouldn't run into. So I'm setting here the player state to 0, so this player has failed and is out of the game. If it's not anything else than black, then it must be black. So then I'm just continuing to move the snake further. So again, this is just for the specific color of each player. Here again, set the label text and current position variable. Yeah, here it starts to get interesting again. So here I have 2 scripts. So as you have seen, when I start my script, so I reset the game here. When I start the script, you can see it's increasing size, and now it's moving forward. So it starts at 1 block size, but it's increasing size until it's 8, and then it's removing the last block of the snake, then it's moving forward. So yeah, when it reached the size of 8, well, it's more than 8, then it will start to shorten the snake, so to move it forward. So in that script here, I need to get the old position, so the last block of my snake. I do that here with a local variable again, and then I'm using a function here. So in that function, I will forward here the current position list variable out of my JSON file, and also parameter n, which is my player ID. So go here into that script and make sure the positions here is formatted as a list variable. Then I'm creating a local variable called x, where I check, get integer, yes, with the current position variable. So the current position variable, again, so I did show you before here in the, which page was it? Page 1? Yes. So the current position variable, so to get the last position here of the block, so I know where I need to remove the tint of the layer again. So this is where I find out where my last position was. Yeah, and then I'm just setting here the label to the default values, so black, and removing text again. Okay. Yeah, and at the end, the speed again. So yeah, the speed will not be executed twice. So as this is in 1 block, and will only be executed if yeah, it's eating food. And this speed here is in the different block, so don't worry, this won't be executed twice. Yeah, so that's actually the main logic of my snake programming here. So we can have a look inside of the second script timer here, the food. So I create here 3 local variables. Okay. Um, oh yeah. So first I'm setting any food back to black again. So if there's still any food which is not removed from the display, setting it here to black again, and then I'm creating new positions for my food. This will be done again with the randomizer here. So a random value between 42 and 1299. That's again in the for script. So in any case, the color is different than black. This will be repeated, so a new random value will be generated until this is valid. Yeah, and as soon as there's a valid value, so a black label, the for script will be interrupted and will go on for the next food position. So I'm doing that for the 3 food positions here. And then I'm tinting the labels, the new food position, to orange. And also I'm storing the food positions inside of my JSON variable. So that's for the food. Last but not least, the timer. This will be executed again for each player. And in here there's a simple timer which counts up seconds. If 60 seconds are reached, minutes will be +1, and seconds will be set to 0. And yeah, I don't know if you play that game an hour, but if 60 minutes are reached, hour will be set to +1 and minutes to 0. Yeah, I will not go into details here for the timer script. Yeah, but this is my logic for the timer here. Yeah, so if you have, or if you want to play it as a multiplayer, you can select here a second player. And here on this label, you can choose which player you want to control. So this widget designer here is now player 1. And of course I can open that up in my browser. Yes. And then I can assign a different player to here. So when I click on that, you can directly see I'm player 2 here. But on the other here, I'm player 1. So when I press play here, a second, I can now control the red snake here with this instance. So this is done with the session values or group values. Not sure if that was already a topic in one of the webinars, but this is definitely a more complex topic for maybe one of the next webinars. Justin, are there any questions?
No, excuse me, no, I've been explaining everything very well.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, if there are not any more questions, we are already at the end of this webinar. So thank you for joining. Yeah, if you have any ideas for upcoming webinars, feel free to put them into our forum. And yeah, also this webinar has been recorded, so if you want to rewatch it, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. This will also be uploaded soon there. So yeah, thank you very much for joining and stay safe.